Hello. It's good to see you. Today we're going to read a story. It's called Follow the Sunset by Herman and Nina Schneider. And here we have a picture of the beginning of the story. Every evening the sun sets. The day ends. The darkness covers your house and all the other houses in your town. School and play are over. Fathers hurry home from work. Mothers tuck their babies into bed as night comes. After the dark of night, there's always the fresh, new day. Every morning when you wake up, there is daylight outside your window. What makes the new day come after the night? And what makes the night follow the day? The light of the sun brings the day. It is daytime for you when your part of the earth is in the sunlight. The setting of the sun brings the night. It is nighttime for you when your part of the earth is out of the sunlight. Night is the time of no sunlight. Day and night follow each other because the earth keeps turning all the time. The earth is a huge ball that turns through the sunlight and darkness, into the sunlight in daytime, into the darkness in nighttime. The earth keeps turning steadily. What happens in other lands, in faraway farms and cities? When nighttime comes to you, does it also come to other people in other lands? Let's follow the sunset and see. It is sunset over the land near the Atlantic Ocean. Day is ending in the big cities and in the little towns and farms of the eastern coast of the United States. The fathers leave their offices and factories. In cars and buses, in subway trains and trolleys, they head for home. There's the ocean. Look at that pretty pink sunset. At home, food is sizzling on the stove. Children are putting away books and skates and bats. The babies are drowsy in their cribs as their mothers sing them to sleep. Soon it is dark night over the big cities and little towns, over the farms and beaches all along this part of the earth. But westward beyond the mountains, the sunset has just begun. Twilight is settling over the central plains of the land, over dark northern forests, over great fields of wheat and corn. In Mexico, too, the night is coming on. Here on a dirt road, a family is riding home from a fiesta in a wagon drawn by slow oxen. The air smells of lime trees. An Indian woman walks by carrying a basket of beans on her head. A burro calls to another burro in the field. The children in the wagon are tired, and their mother sings them a song. Now it is dark night in Mexico and in all the part of the earth that is circled away from the sunlight. The children are asleep in the starry dark. But farther westward, sunset is just beginning. In the land of the cowboy and his cattle, it is sunset. The bright paint box colors fade out of the sky. Over the Rocky Mountains, the sun sinks out of sight. Darkness, like a soft velvet ribbon, rolls over the prairies and over the cowboys who are singing the cattle to rest with a song. Now the cattle are quiet, and the children in the ranch houses are asleep. It is nighttime over the prairies and along the western shore. But over the Pacific Ocean, the twilight is just beginning. Now the next part of the earth and sea is moving from light to night. Over Hawaii and the many little Pacific islands, the clouds are colored with the last rays of the setting sun. The fluttering fish nets are still, and the pink sails are folded away from the wind. The boys are digging a fire pit for a picnic supper. Along the darkening beach, the fisher fathers can hear the mothers singing the children to sleep. Now it is night time for the fishes in the sea and for the island fishermen and their families. Starlight and firelight shine upon them. But far away, on the other shore of the Pacific Ocean, daylight is just ending. Turning, turning, the earth keeps turning away from the west and the sunlight. And now evening time is coming to the Asian land, to the Indian Ocean and the China Sea. The fathers come home from the rice fields and teak forests, from sampans and silk shops. The children are catching fireflies to put into lanterns. The firefly lanterns will give light in the dark night. The sleepy small children try to watch the flickering fireflies, but their eyes close while mother sings a song and brother plays a flute. Now everything is quiet along the Yangtze River in China. Dark night has settled softly over the Asian land and sea, over Australia and the islands of the Pacific. But westward in other lands, the children are just beginning to feel drowsy. The sunset and the dark come steadily across the earth, bringing night to each place in turn. Twilight covers the Red Sea and the hills of Turkey. It is getting too dark to work any longer in the orange groves of Israel. The orange pickers return to the buildings where many families live. The children are carrying blankets to the big outdoor fireplace. Tonight there will be a party outdoors, and they will fall asleep to the sound of gay dance music. It is bright, starry night in Israel. But farther west, where the earth is turning away from the sunlight, evening has just begun. In the hill country of Africa, a drowsy baby listens to her sister singing. In the field below, their father and mother are still at work in the deepening twilight. When it is too dark to work any longer, they will come home with a jug of water from the river and a basket of yams from the garden. It is night on the hills and plains of Africa and all along this vast part of the earth. But westward, the day is just leaving the land. Fathers and brothers come home from the olive groves and vineyards in Spain and France, from mountain pastures and valley fields. In old towns and freshly planted fields, people see the sun setting as they return to their homes. In a house near the shore of England, a mother is thinking of her sailor husband as she sings a song to her baby. All this part of the world turns smoothly from daylight into dark. The quiet night will cover the islands of England and the lands of Europe. Stars will shine over flowering fields and shining beaches. On the deck of a great ocean liner, the sailors and passengers are watching the first pale stars appear in the sky. They think of their families and friends as they whistle and sing an old sea song. Now it is night over the Atlantic Ocean, and this part of the earth will turn steadily through the dark until it turns once again through the sunrise. Now the earth has turned all the way around. As it turned, darkness rolled westward over mountains and prairies, over islands and oceans. The darkness fell softly over farmers and fishermen, over mothers and children. The turning of the earth brought dark, starry night, and then pink dawn and bright day. Now once again the sun is setting along the land near the Atlantic Ocean. Once again this part of the earth is circling into darkness. From sunset to sunset, one day has passed. The end. Now we're going to go to another story. This one is called Peter Rabbit's Prank. Every day, Old Mother West Wind opened her big bag and shook out onto the green meadows the merry little breezes who, as you know, are her children. Every day, the merry little breezes whirled about in mad little dances for pure joy, and then scattered in all directions to play the whole day long. As light our feet as thistledown, our hearts as sunny hours, we dance along amid the throng and kiss the smiling flowers. So the merry little breezes sang and kissed the buttercups and daisies and played hide and seek among the tall meadow grasses. For these were happy, happy days on the green meadows and in the green forest. Farmer Brown's boy had put away his dreadful gun, and so long as he did not have that, the little meadow and forest people knew that they had nothing to fear from him, unless he should happen to find their homes, and they were so cunningly hidden that he would have to hunt a long, long time to find one of them. So all the little meadow and forest people were just as happy as the merry little breezes, and were cutting up all sorts of pranks on the green meadows and around the Smiling Pool. My, but it does seem good to get enough to eat once more, exclaimed Johnny Chuck, as he rubbed noses with Peter Rabbit in the sweet clover patch, where each ate and ate and ate, till it seemed as if his little round tummy must surely burst. You see, in the dreadful days when Farmer Brown's boy had been tramping over the green meadows with his gun, Johnny Chuck had not dared to go more than 10 feet from his own doorstep. So Johnny had grown thin, for he hadn't been able to get enough to eat. Now he was making up for it. Down the crooked little path from the top of the hill came Jimmy Skunk, his hands in his pockets. He was coming very slowly, for it takes something very unusual to make Jimmy Skunk hurry. Peter Rabbit's eyes twinkled when he saw Jimmy Skunk. "Watch me have some fun with Jimmy Skunk," whispered Peter Rabbit to Johnny Chuck. Peter soon was out of sight in the tall meadow grass. By and by, Johnny Chuck caught a glimpse of Peter hiding behind some bushes that grew close to the crooked little path down the hill where it is steepest. Just above was a turn in the crooked little path, and this was the reason that Jimmy Skunk didn't see Peter too. Down the crooked little path came Jimmy Skunk, humming to himself. Suddenly a fat beetle ran out of the bushes and started down the crooked little path as if it had very important affairs to attend to. Now, if there is anything in the world that will make Jimmy Skunk hurry, it is a fat beetle. Jimmy saw this one, and his mouth watered, and he started after the fat beetle without looking to see where he was stepping. Of course, he tripped over the blackberry vine that Peter Rabbit was holding across the path. Head first, down the hill went Jimmy Skunk and turned half a dozen somersaults before he reached the bottom. "Ha ha ha," shouted Peter Rabbit and Johnny Chuck. Jimmy Skunk picked himself up and grinned. "I'll get even with you," he said. Because Jimmy Skunk was such a good sport, Peter Rabbit decided to give him a special treat. Peter took Jimmy to a big flat stone and showed him a dozen fat beetles underneath. My, what a fine meal Jimmy Skunk had that day. And we have one more thing to read. This is a section on butterflies and moths of North America. This is a female Promethea moth. Butterflies and moths are much alike in many ways. They'll have 4 wings, 6 legs, hollow tongues, and 2 feelers, which are called antennae. There are no real bones, hearts, or lungs in any of them. Their blood is green or yellow instead of red. They are held together by a sort of tough, strong skin which can easily bend in any direction. All butterflies fly during the daytime, but not at night. Most moths fly at night and hide during the day. A butterfly's body is usually thin, and a moth's is fat. Moths and butterflies lay large numbers of eggs on the leaves of plants. In a few days, a tiny caterpillar hatches out of each one. The first thing he does is to start crawling and eating leaves. He eats so much and so fast that at the end of every day, he is much larger than he was the day before. By the time he is fully grown, his body is generally longer and fatter than his mother's was. Finally, the caterpillar stops eating and begins to move around on the plant whose leaves he has chewed and swallowed. This is a red-humped apple worm. And this is a black swallowtail caterpillar and a female Io moth. Sometimes he crawls along the ground to another plant. He is looking for a place where he can turn into a moth or a butterfly exactly like his parents. When a moth caterpillar finds a good spot, he stops and begins to spin a silk blanket around himself. He makes the silk thread for it inside his head and squeezes it out through a queer little gadget in his face. When the job is finished, he is inside a covering called a cocoon. When a full-grown butterfly caterpillar stops eating, he behaves differently. So do I. Instead of making a cocoon, he spins a little button of silk on the underside of a twig. Into this, he pushes a small hook, which is at the end of his tail. When this is firmly caught in the silk, he lets go of the twig with his legs and hangs upside down. From now on, a butterfly caterpillar and a moth caterpillar act in the same way. They both wriggle and twist until they get out of their old skins. While this is going on, a strange covering begins to form all over them. It is very thin, tough, and almost transparent. It may be greenish in color, as in the case of the monarch butterfly in the photograph. This is a monarch pupating, and here it's shedding the caterpillar's skin, right here. But a moth caterpillar's new covering is usually brown or gray. While inside their queer, shining coverings, all caterpillars are called pupae. When they are in this condition, they are said to be pupating. Amazing things happen to them during the next few days, weeks, or months. Everything about them changes. New and much longer legs begin to grow. So do regular wings, tongues, feelers, and bodies. Finally, their coverings split open and the finished moths or butterflies come crawling out. For the first few minutes, they are wet and crumpled. But the fresh air gives them strength and a chance to breathe, stretch, and get dry. Almost before you know it, they fly away exactly as their parents did. In a day or so, many of them will be laying eggs of their own to start a new generation of caterpillars. This is a newly formed monarch pupa. And here you can see the butterfly begin to emerge. This is the monarch out of the pupa and the fully formed monarch. The beautiful monarch is one of our largest and strongest butterflies. He is so strong that he can fly all the way from Canada to Mexico. He does this in the autumn in order to escape the cold weather. Many times he lives all through the warm winter in the south. When spring comes, he and many of his friends start north again. By that time, they are too old to travel very far, but they stop and lay eggs here and there. When those eggs hatch and the young caterpillars have pupated, there will be plenty of new young monarchs to continue the northward journey. This is a white-lined Sphinx Moth and the Leonardus skipper, the beautiful tiger moth, and the wood nymph owlet moth. There are about 3 times as many kinds of moths as there are butterflies. Moths have soft colors and a tremendous number of beautiful patterns. These often make them very hard to see when they are resting on the bark of a tree during the day, like the Ilia underwing moth. Many of the butterflies, especially the big ones, have plenty of bright colors such as red and yellow. All of these colors come from what looks like a sort of dust on both sides of the moth and butterfly wings. There is some of it on most of their bodies too. In the case of a moth, it seems to be a very short, fine fur, or maybe a piece of velvet. Every bit of it is so small that you could not see it if it were by itself. There are millions of these specks on each wing. They overlap each other like the shingles on a house roof. Not all of them are the same size and shape. This is why they reflect different kinds of colors. Some are shaped so that they do not reflect any color at all. This part of the wing is just plain black. If you were to rub a moth or butterfly wing gently with your finger, all these specks would come off. Then you would see that they had been fastened to a very thin, colorless skin, so clear that you can see through it. This covers a network of springy, hollow veins which keep the wing in shape even when it is flapped up and down in the air. The veins also carry blood as well as air to all parts of the wings. Some moths and butterflies have very strangely shaped wings. For instance, there's a long, slim streamer on each rear wing of a black swallowtail butterfly. And this is the black or parsley swallowtail. They make you think of the forked tail of a swallow, one of our best-known wild birds. Right down here. These tails may help him to fly, and they certainly do make him look more handsome. Many other big and little butterflies have such tails, and so do some of the moths. The end. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you again really soon.